So in this verse, we are seeing how Vidura is beginning this chapter by a query. So he is asking Maitreya Rishi about explaining the Boar incarnation. So in the first verse also Shukadev Goswami is referring to that query, and in the second verse he is directly quoting Vidura's query that please explain more about Hiraṇyākṣa. So basically, if we understand this concept of query, Krishna talks about the process of query, process of receiving knowledge from Guru. He mentions in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 34th verse, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So we all would have heard this verse many times, and how this is the process of receiving the bona fide knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master. But there is a lot of depth to this verse in a way how we all can understand and apply. Like here, Krishna is mentioning that there are three prerequisites for receiving knowledge. We all want to understand the absolute truth. So that is how we became interested at some point in our life. And we have left our careers, we have left our other material pursuits, passion, ambitions, and we have embarked on a spiritual journey. So, but now to see the truth, we cannot see the truth. That is why it says, Upadekshanti te jnaninas tattvadarshina. Who is seeing the truth, they have to impart this truth to us. So if the spiritual master has to impart this truth to us, what is that we are supposed to do? We are supposed to do three things: pranipata, pariprashna and sevaya. So in this verse, Krishna is explaining pranipata. Pranipata means approaching the spiritual master. So if you see this verse, if you carefully analyze the query from Vidura, so Vidura is telling, I have heard by disciplic succession that Hiraṇyākṣa, the original demon, was. You see how he is not saying that what I have known, what I have heard, I have understood like this, you explain. No, I have heard. So approaching the spiritual master, that's why our process of receiving knowledge is not ascending process, it is descending process. Aroha panta and avaroha panta. So ours is descending process of knowledge, avaroha panta. So where we don't believe our senses. So we go by what we have heard in the disciplic succession. So approaching the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, is one of the most important prerequisites for receiving the right spiritual knowledge. That's how Bhagavatam also says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. So it is dharma, the principles of religion are not enunciated by any government law or anything. It is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So that's how Prabhupada also gives an example that if suppose we want to pursue a degree in engineering, so I cannot go to any place just like that. Or say these days, I think in papers we frequently hear about, there was a case where thousands of students have been studying in a school, but that school is not at all authorized by the government. After so many years, now the government is forced to authorize that, because otherwise thousands of students' lives are in jeopardy. So the whole point here is being authorized. So when there is a college which is authorized by the government, and when we study in that, then we get a degree certificate. Prabhupada also gives another example of a post box. So post box is also like any other box. But when you go and put your letter in that post box, then it reaches the destination. So suppose there is one more box next to the post box, you go and put there, will it go? It will not go. So similarly, approaching the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, is one of the basic prerequisites for us to receive or see the actual truth, absolute truth. The next is pariprashna. So, and pariprashna, so generally prashna in Sanskrit refers to queries. So, pariprashna, so generally we don't understand the difference outside world. So, here Prabhupada translates pariprashna as submissive inquiries. It is not just with inquiry. So, if you see in this verse, the first shloka translation, it says, Vidura, who had taken a vow, begged him with folded hands. You see, if you see this, these two verses, Vidura and Maitreya's thing, first thing is telling, I have heard from disciplic succession, pranipata, pariprashna. So that is, I am with folded hands. So it is not that sometimes we challenge, I want to understand this truth. Can you explain? So that's how people are, can you show me God? Why can't I see God? That means there is no God. So that's not the process of inquiry. The process of inquiry is with folded hands, with, I have heard from disciplic succession. So after pranipata comes pariprashna. That means we have to ask this question in a submissive manner, not in a challenging mood. So in fact, if you see the whole scenario of Bhagavad Gita also, so Arjuna, he tried countering himself or justifying his stance by giving so many reasons. The first chapter is all of 6 reasons that he gives. But till he came to a point, karpanya doshopahata. So he said that I am becoming your disciple. Till then, Krishna did not take charge. And the moment he surrendered himself, then Krishna said, you are a fool. The first thing that he said, you are talking like a great person, but what you are speaking doesn't, match with each other. So that knowledge receiving starts only when we approach the spiritual master and offer submissive inquiries. So in this case also, if you see, when I was reading this purport, Prabhupada says here about 2 Boar incarnations, one happening in Svāyambhuva Manu and the other one in Cākṣuṣa Manu. And one is Shveta Varna and the other is Rakta Varna. In one in millennium, the Lord lifted the earth from the waters. In the other millennium, the Lord killed the Boar incarnation. So just analyze this verse itself. If this purport by Srila Prabhupada was not there, then there is all chance, all probability, all possibility that when we read the scriptures by themselves, then so much of contradicting things will come up. So that's how many people in the outside world are completely confused. And our position would not have been any different from that, because we will say, no, some place it is saying white form, some place it is telling red. So this thing are not congruent at all. So the scriptures at all are, so we go to the extent of questioning the veracity of the scriptures itself. So if we don't had the directions of a bona fide spiritual master. So in other words, the finer nuances of spiritual life can be understood only when we approach a spiritual master, pranipata and pariprashna, submissive inquiries. And the third thing that Krishna is talking about in this verse is sevaya. So sevaya is practical devotional service. That's how bhakti is very uniquely defined by Srila Prabhupada as devotional service. If you go to any other Sanskrit scholar and ask bhakti means what, they will say devotion. Bhakti means devotion, but in now Prabhupada translates it as devotional service. So practical service is very important. There was once case study the past time of one donor, and he was also a very submissive person. He approached Srila Prabhupada and he asked him, can you please bless my son? So then Prabhupada smiled and yes. So like that, second time it happened, third time. So then he was asking, at once Prabhupada said, okay, since you are asking so much for blessing your son, I am blessing your son. Now you can offer him in the service of Krishna and he'll be really blessed. Oh no, Swamiji, not that kind of blessing. I want you to bless him to excel in his business and take care of the family and all that. So you see how when we approach spiritual master and when we surrender, Our understanding of protection, our understanding of reciprocation from Lord is based on our level of advancement, isn't it? So the sevaya, the practical service, it cannot be just lip service. So in our organization, we are blessed with so many services. So this practical service is what is important, but in the outside world that misses. So for them, bhakti means, okay, you believe in existence of God, do an arati. So, but when it comes to work, they want to do for themselves. So that sense gratification takes over. So therefore, these three things are very important. And Krishna is telling how he's telling this is the actual path of understanding knowledge. The two extremes Krishna is negating by saying that no, it is not only not pranipatena. No, without pariprashna, what will happen? If you do only pranipata, it will be like blind following. Or sometimes only pariprashna, no pranipata, no seva. Then that is comes under absurd inquiries, the challenging thing. So that is how Krishna is combining those two extremes and is giving the right process by saying pranipatena, pariprashnena and sevaya. And when we do a combination of all these three things, then what will happen? The self-realized soul who is seeing the truth, he self-realized soul, he is seeing the truth, and that he will help us see. We cannot see it on our own. So we need his help. So, but for getting his help, we need to do these three things. So otherwise, we are all very lazy, because when we say inquiries, so it means like if you see the whole mass of this world, so they are also inquiring into so many other things. But spiritual inquiry is what we are talking about. In that we are all lazy. I think we all would have heard this story of BBMA, which was described by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada also talks about that. So it's like, how the whole world is like that. So the BBMA is, just to, if in case somebody has not heard. So there were two people who were quite lazy, and they were sleeping in a hut, and it so happened once in the dead of, and it was a chilly winter, so so much of cold was there. So and then all of a sudden, because of some reason, there was fire on the roof of that hut, and the flame started growing with time, and this two guys were so lazy that but they were feeling pleasant warmth because of that fire, no? So they were enjoying that. But after some time, the inconvenience levels were rising, but they both were lazy enough to open their eyes and see what is that inconvenience causing. No, so why open an eyes and unnecessarily? So lazy. And so one person finally, when it was really becoming scorching heat, so one person uttered the word BB. So he wanted to say, my back is burning. But why say so long, 3 words and waste your energy? So BB, he said. The other guy, he wants to be the master of this guy. He said BB. We all are laughing because we may not understand, but they have their language of lazy people, no? So they have their language. So when he said BB, the second guy said MA. So MA means move aside. If your back is burning, turn to the other side and sleep. So when he said BB, he understood. The second lazy person understood, and he said MA, move aside and sleep. So that means both of them were so lazy that they were not even ready to open their eyes and see the reality, the scorching, blazing fire that is around us. So what is going to happen? So both comfortably slept in that, and both were burnt to death. So that is what is happening in the case of the mainstream karmis, where we are not seeing the blazing fire of material existence around us. We have become so lazy, we are so much entrapped in the rat race that we are not even knowing. It's like Prabhupada also gives an example. If suppose somebody is rushing to go to some place, and he's rushing to the railway station or the airport, whatever, and then you stop him and say, where are you going? And if suppose that man says, no, I don't have time to think where I am going, but I just want to go. So my flight is, but where are you heading towards? Which place? No, I have not decided all that. I just want to travel. So what do you conclude, infer on such a person? You fool. You have not even decided where to go. What is your plan to next to after going there? You're just rushing. Now if we analyze, this is what is happening in the world around us. So we don't know what is going to happen next after this life. And if you ask something, all this, you are, Swamiji, you are all very much negative. You are not at all optimistic. You are all very pessimistic in life. Always talk about death. You always talk about Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. You are always that thing only. You see, so many nice things are there in life around you. So all these things you are not at all considering. No, that is not at all. We are seeing, in fact, we are neither optimistic nor pessimistic. We are realistic. Devotees are always realistic because we know what is going to happen in future. Just like in the case of a family, is there any parent who, if the child is wanting to study for the examination from the first day of the year, although that is impractical, all of us, we know that exam, only on the previous day you see, even in the washroom, while traveling, we will all be with the books. But 1 year would have relaxed. So, but if there is a student, if there is a student who wants to study from day one, will there be any parent who will say, "Arey, you are a fool. You are, so short-sighted. Why are you studying now for the exam that is going to be there at the end of the year?" No, they are very happy. Oh, my child is so serious and so sincere. He is preparing for the exam. Everybody will encourage the children. Now, the same son, when he is trying to prepare for the exam of the life, by taking to spirituality, by taking to Krishna consciousness, by reading Bhagavad Gita, "Arey, aapko kya ho gaya? Abhi is saal umar pe aap lene ja rahe ho." So because the son has realized that there is going to be an exam called death at the end of the life, and I am preparing for that. So what is wrong? Yes sir, no, whenever you go outside, that first thing I would say, that is one of the frequently asked question to all the young devotees around. "Swamiji, aap is umar pe kaise join ho gaye? So what made you join?" Isn't it? So because people are all wondering that this is not, but Bhagavata Vidhi is different. Kaumarem acharet pragna dharman bhagavataniya. So from the age of 5 we should practice. So if we are lazy in spiritual life, then we will never be waking up to these realities, harsh realities. And how do we wake up? So now we may all say that, yes, we have come to this spiritual life. Yes, we have come to this spiritual life. See, just like there are two ways of becoming rich. One way of becoming rich is by hard work and all those vision, mission and all your karma will support, then you become rich. Another way of becoming rich is somebody can just give you their bounty. So I may be a beggar. In fact, there is a real-time case. I will not explain much, but there is a real-time person in Bangalore whom I know. He was a servant in one house and the owner was an US citizen. And he had so much property, without the servant's knowledge, the owner has written off his property on this servant's name. And that servant, because I used to go and meet that owner, and this servant used to serve me water and everything and all that. In Kannada they call Buddhi. Buddhi means master or Prabhu, whatever in our terms. So Buddhi in Kannada means master. He used to call that and serve water. After some years I see that he has become the owner. But he doesn't know how to take care of that bungalow and owner of the property. He sits in the middle of the home on the floor and has dinner and lunch with his family. He doesn't know what to do with that property. So there are two ways. So in our case, what has happened is the latter, not the former. So sometimes, when in that same frequently asked question, Swamiji, at this age you have come, people also think, ye to purva janma ka sukriti rahega. Aapne, in fact, some of us also believe that. Because Krishna says, yoga brashta, that at some point we have practiced and then we would have come at this life. So we also have some feeling, मैं तो last life में 9% तक दिया था, इसलिए मैं 10% इससे शुरू कर रहा हूँ, मतलब बहुत जल्दी मैं पकड़ लिया. So that's what we also feel, but not necessarily. It can be just a cause. That is why it is called causeless mercy. There need not be a cause associated, attributed to our taking to spiritual life. It can be completely a causeless mercy. In fact, Prabhupada tells this interesting pastime once to Jayadvaita Swami Prabhu. So he says, he asks Jayadvaita Prabhu, and many disciples, devotees were also there. Jayadvaita, say suppose you are walking on the street and you find a stick. Is it worthwhile? Prabhupada asks. Then Jayadvaita Prabhu and many other devotees, they'll say, no Prabhupada, not at all. Because stick, you see anything, you see millions of sticks around you, trees. So then Prabhupada continues. He says, you continue to walk further and you see one piece of wire. Is it of any use? Then all the devotees say, no, not at all Prabhupada, it's useless. So then Prabhupada continues. You further walk and then you see a piece of gourd, G-O-U-R-D. It's like a fruit which is like have a hard shell from outside and soft from inside. So is that of any use? Then again devotees will all erupt into one voice and say, not at all, no Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada says, but an intelligent man will pick up the wire, will pick up the stick and will stick that stick on the gourd and connect it through the wire and make it an musical instrument. And that is what I have done with all of you European and American boys. So in other words, Prabhupada in fact was so merciful, he didn't further say that you are all wire, stick and gourd. He didn't say that, but it means that, no. But finally, it is not something great thing for us to infer. So Prabhupada told it in a very dignified manner. But this is the truth, this is the reality. So at any point in our life, we should not feel, ये तो मेरा पूर्व जन्म में सब किया और मेरा birthright अभी मैं spirituality में हूँ. तो नहीं, so we are all like any time driven by Maya's thing. If as long as things are going well, we all are talking all this thing. So because that realization, that depth, it is all given to us by the mercy of the Guru. So otherwise our lives are no better than wire, stick and gourd. So but an intelligent man like Srila Prabhupada, a merciful devotee like Srila Prabhupada has combined all these three things and is making some music come out of all of us. Or other words, the devotional service that we are rendering, it is nothing but Guru Bhiksha. It is nothing but the mercy of the spiritual master. So in that way, we always tell the full-time missionaries, the devotees we all have one extra privilege which no other congregation devotees have, which no other people who are practicing from outside have. What is that? Any guess? If you analyze sadhana from Mangalarti to Bhagavatam class, anybody can come? Yes? Chanting holy names. So can a devotee or a donor or a folk boy or congregation devotee, can he be determined to chant more nicely than any FTM? Yes or no? Yes. It need not be limited by being an FTM, right? And seva. Can a person decide and dedicate himself to serve in the temple from morning till night? Yes or no? Yes. So sadhana he can do. He can chant nicely. He can read and do practical service if he decides to do. How much is realistic, let's keep that aside. So, but if a person decides to do be sincere, is serious, he can do all of these things as much as all of us can. So, but there is one special thing as a full-time devotee which generally is not available to others. What is that? अरे मैं कॉन्ग्रीगेशन हूँ समझ लीजिए, तो अभी मैं भी एसोसिएशन लूँगा डिवोटीज की. इनफैक्ट बाहर के रहने वालों को एसोसिएशन ज़्यादा मिलेगा डिवोटीज को. हम डिवोटी हो गया तो हमारा क्या एसोसिएशन, हम कुछ बात की चीज़ ही बातें करते रहेंगे, है ना. वी नेवर हार्डली डिवोटीज टॉक अबाउट कृष्णा टू कमिंग टुगेदर. वी टॉक अबाउट इसका वो हुआ उसका वो हुआ, वही बात करते हैं हम. तो बाहर लोग का ही एसोसिएशन ज़्यादा मिलता है हमसे. तो एसोसिएशन इज नॉट द राइट आंसर. एनी अदर थिंग? हाँ, कम्युनिटी. अभी वो भी यदि समझ लीजिए उनको भी एक फैसिलिटी मिल गया मंदिर में स्टे करने का. राइट पॉइंट, बैंग ऑन. So that is one thing which no others can get. The correction, you can call it chastisement also sometime, guidance. Because here, that is what he is telling, Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tato. Because they are seeing the truth, they will impart the truth. See, we can't see what are the anarthas in ourselves, right? Somebody else has to see that and tell us, देखिए प्रभु आपका ऐसा है, you should not do like this. So that is not available for outsider. We will be very reserved in talking to him about the negatives. But when it comes to our community, we hardly talk about the good things, because the moment you start saying good things, we grow our hands. Yes or no? So we go into the pride trap and all that. So we only point that प्रभु आप अच्छा नहीं किया. A devotee feel करेगा, मैं 100 चीज अच्छा किया, कभी प्रभु मुझे नहीं बताया, एक चीज में अच्छा नहीं किया, उसी का बोल रहे. But that is what we are here for. Yes or no? So we are not here for somebody to tell, oh, you Prabhu, you dedicated your life every day. So you left your family, you left your career. No, that's all over. We have crossed that. We have crossed the 10th standard. We have come to the college now. So that thing we get only by being in a community of devotees, surrendering to Prabhupada. And this inquiries that Vidura is doing here with Maitreya Rishi, and the inquiry that Arjuna is doing with Krishna, and Krishna what is explaining, that these three things are there. Sometimes these inquiries also, some devotees ask or people ask, how do we inquire? Because I am not feeling that urge to inquire. So one understanding that we get from Prabhupada's books about inquiring is, when we understand that we are actually suffering in this material world, naturally we become more inquisitive. But if we don't understand that we are suffering, if we think that we are enjoying, everything around me is going well, so then that submissive inquiry will never come. Say for example, Prabhupada talks about, so how do we get this understanding of we are suffering? So Prabhupada gives 2 or 3 examples. One thing he says is, this material world is like jumping from frying pan to fire. This is the phrase that he uses. And he says, I'll just read whatever he has written, Prabhupada has written. So unless you come to the point of surrendering to Krishna, there cannot be any peace. That is the point. Simply by changing from frying pan to the fire will not save you. Therefore, Krishna's last instruction is Sarvadharman Parityajya. And then one more place he says, we change from one object of surrender to another. No more Congress party, now Communist party. This party, that party. What is the use of changing parties? Whether you surrender to this party or that party, you are not surrendering to Krishna. And unless you come to the point of surrendering to Krishna, you cannot have any peace. That is the point. Simply changing from the frying pan to the fire will not save you. So in other words, any pursuit that we try to do in our lives without Krishna, without the Lord, so that is only trying to jump from frying pan to fire. तो जो आग के ऊपर रहता है, तो आप कुछ चपाती रोटी सब करते, तो मतलब गर्म होता है. तो हमारे लाइफ में भी थोड़ा चीज़, when things are not okay, we feel disturbed, we feel depressed. So some things are not okay. But when we don't bring Krishna and when we try to materially adjust some situation, then it is like jumping from frying pan to fire. मतलब frying pan के ऊपर at least थोड़ा वो frying pan था, fire और आपके हमारे बीच में. तो but अभी उससे directly हमने कहा jump किया into the fire, आग से. So the situation will only worsen, it will not improve. And one more thing Prabhupada gives, one more phrase is shifting burden from head to shoulder. This also he says to understand how we are suffering. That say suppose आपने बहुत heavy object आपके सिर के ऊपर रखा है and it started paining heavily. So what you can do is you can shift that burden from the head to shoulder. कंधे के ऊपर रख सकते हैं. And immediately you can feel relief. Oh my God, you're so much pain, heavy burden it was. Now I got relieved. तो लेकिन उस थोड़ा समय के बाद क्या होगा? The shoulder starts paining. Then you shift it to the left shoulder, then right shoulder will get relieved fully. So you can enjoy that. But very soon left shoulder will start aching. So in other words, if we don't bring Krishna in our lives and if we try to solve the things ourselves, So now you may say, no Prabhu, we are all devotees here, we have dedicated life, you are saying again that don't bring Krishna. So when we say bringing Krishna into our lives, there is different ranges and depths. Yes, we all have accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have dedicated our life, we are serving the mission of our Guru, but then within spiritual life also, there will be lot of incidents because we are dealing with the Vyavaharic world. Somebody may say something to you, somebody may happen something to you. So bringing Krishna means in all these incidents, in all these things, seeing the reciprocation of the Lord. So that is a whole life practice. It is not about 1 or 2 days. So this is the second phrase that Prabhupada uses. And the third phrase Prabhupada uses is, happiness is nothing but the interval between two distresses. And he gives the example of a person who is put forcibly into the water. So he is gasping for breath and he is not able to, he is feeling suffocated and he is almost to death and pushed to death. And when his head is brought out from the water, he will feel that, yes, I have come, I have been saved now. So that pleasure he will feel, right? So but very soon he will be again put back into the water. So the sense of pleasure that we feel in the material world is just a interval of 2 immersions in the water. So like this, Prabhupada gives so many other phrases and how shastrically we can see our life, that how shifting burden from head to shoulder or jumping from frying pan to fire, or it is just the interval between two distresses. And in fact, Prahlad Maharaj also says in the 7th canto when he is offering prayers, he says, Dukkaushadam tadapi dukkad atadhyaham. In this material world, the solution to a problem is more miserable than the problem itself. Better to live with that problem. In fact, recently I had met one person. So he was explaining to me about the painful traumatic situation of his mother who was diagnosed with cancer. So what is that treatment called? Cancer? Chemo, right? So I think that chemotherapy, it is so painful that the mother started telling, it's better I die with cancer and not take the treatment. So painful, it's like, I want to die now. I don't want this chemo. So you see, this is exactly Prahlad Maharaj is telling. The solution to a problem, dukkha aushadam. The aushadam is medicine, dukkha is problem. Dukkha aushadam, tadapi dukkad atadhyaham. It is more painful than the dukkham itself. So therefore, the only solution for us is to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. And that surrendering process also, like I think in the internet also this story is rarely seen, that without this surrendering process, anything else you do, it will just fail. So this story, it talks about one fish which wanted to escape the net of the fisherman. So it says that every day the fisherman used to come, a group of, and they used to lay the net, and so many fishes were getting caught and they were all, killed. So the fishes were every day getting into a meeting and understanding how to escape this, because every day somebody else will be dying. So, but one fish was never getting caught in the fisherman's net. So all these older fishes were quite wondering, अरे इसका तो कुछ प्रॉब्लम है और ये तो मीटिंग में भी नहीं आएगा, तो डिस्कस करने के लिए कैसे इससे बचना है. तो then one day they all went and asked this fish, what do you do? So the fish said, no, whenever I get some hint about this fisherman coming, that sound and all that, and the net being cast, so I quickly swim down and go and stay near the feet of that fisherman, as close as to the fish, because when you cast the net, you cast like this, right? So you will not cast like this, so at the feet. So I go and stay near the feet of that fisherman. So in other words, this parable is so much applicable to us that when we try to swim away in the name of protection and etc., away from Krishna, we can never be safe from the net of Maya. But when we come closer and take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord through the instructions of the Guru, then we can be safe from this Maya net. And that is how In fact, we are all so fortunate that we have got this access to the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. And in fact, in one place, Prabhupada says, we all have seen his letters. I will end with this. That Prabhupada writes all his letters with a common signature that you are ever well-wisher, right? So, Prabhupada once explained what is the meaning, why he writes that. And it is very heart-warming, heart-touching. So, I'll just read this short paragraph. So, why does Srila Prabhupada sign as you are ever well-wisher in every letter at the end? So, I write at the end of my letters to my disciples, you are ever well-wisher. And as such, I cannot become otherwise than being ever well-wisher of my disciples, even though he may leave me. That means Prabhupada is telling, even if we may not follow, even if we are not willing to be under the shelter of Guru, so Prabhupada is telling, even though he may leave me, I will still continue be his ever well-wisher. So I was praying to Krishna that he may save Kirtanananda. Basically, this was at the time when there was some misunderstanding and Kirtanananda Prabhu had some these things and all. So Prabhupada is telling, so I was praying to Krishna that Krishna may save Kirtanananda from his misunderstanding. And if ever he chanted, Kirtanananda chanted Hare Krishna at least once in sincere heart, I am sure Krishna would not allow him to go out of his influence. Therefore, I believe that he can never forget the form of Krishna, neither he can deny his personality. I always think of him and pray to Krishna for his good sense, Kirtanananda's good sense. That is my duty. And then Prabhupada says, anyone who comes to me for my help or wants to advance in Krishna consciousness and whom I initiate and accept as my disciple, I must pray for him and his welfare always. So Kirtanananda personally served me, especially during my illness, which I always remember. So this is the meaning of Prabhupada's signing, your ever well-wisher. So in other words, we started this discussion today by saying Pranipata, Pariprashna, Sevaya, all these are prerequisites for understanding knowledge. But here we have got such a merciful spiritual master. Even if you do not do these three things, if you have ever chanted once Hare Krishna sincerely, done little bit of service, he is ready to take the charge of taking us back to Godhead. So that is the beauty of having come in touch with Srila Prabhupada's personality. And one last principle is that just like in management also we have the 6S, Six Sigma training and all that, right? So I was just seeing from this verse, we can always have 6S to our spiritual life. For simplicity, Prabhupada talks about this in many things. I am not going into the references due to the time constraint. Simplicity, sincerity and surrender. Simplicity, sincerity, and Prabhupada talks about these two words and surrender in many quotes in connection to holy name. He says simplicity, sincerity and surrender to spiritual master will result in success in spiritual life. So this will be the 6 S's for a devotee. So we should remember this and try to serve a spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada, and that will bring us the success in spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Prema.